Hello and welcome to our day together at the Real Food campaign. I've been asked to talk about food and real food and why that's important within the context of health. I'm Dr. Sally. I have been a medical doctor for 22 years now, and over the last 10 years I've developed a style of practice where alongside conventional medicine sometimes I will be using lifestyle and nutrition to help reverse disease and help people recover their health. It really has been a journey of falling back in love with medicine for me. So what are the problems we're facing and why is food so important and how does that fit in? I mean, we really have a health crisis, don't we? And I'm not talking about COVID. We have rates, sort of 1 in 2 people will have cancer in their lifetime. 2/3 of our adult population are overweight or obese. We have, I think 1 in 5 of us have heart disease by the age of 50. And what makes me really sad is, I was recently reading about how 50% of our children have a medical diagnosis by the age of 50. And I could go on with the alarming and escalating rates around diabetes, around mental health, around infertility. And then we look towards our adult and aging population with these horrific, rates of dementia and of rates of dementia. And really, we're facing an incredible crisis as a nation. And we need to be asking, where are we going wrong? Because when you start considering how your body is made, it is wired for health, it's wired for healing. We have innate ability to get rid of cancer cells every day, regulate our mood, regulate our sugars, calm down inflammation, and we're really wired for flourishing and health. And so, what has gone wrong? And I think as a medic, halfway through my career, I felt more like a pharmaceutical vending machine than I did a doctor. And we've developed a style of medicine that is very much focused on disease management, not really considering what's going on in the individual. And a lot of our guidelines are pharmaceutically driven. We have really specialised in the desire for excellence. And so we have doctors for every part of the body. And probably historically, people would have looked to the GP to hold all that together. But certainly over the last 20 years of my practice, there's been a real loss of continuity of care and so much time constraint in terms of really working out what's going on and journeying with patients. Now, this isn't to, a dig at the NHS. I've worked for years in Africa, in places where there are no health systems, and our NHS is amazing, but it's born out of that infectious disease era and born to think like that. So, it's fantastic for acute problems, fantastic for specialised problems. Really, if you have a road traffic accident, you don't want one of us sitting over you talking about broccoli. You want those surgeons, those anaesthetists, those acute care specialists to save your life. And the same with specialisation. My daughter, when she was born, had a congenital hand problem, and we'd actually had surgery that failed in those early years. And when it came to have repeat surgery, I found the best hand surgeon that only operated on congenital hand children in paediatrics to do the surgery, because I wanted the best for our children. So this isn't a message that wants to diminish the wonderful work of the NHS. But it's really interesting when you start unravelling the issue of chronic disease, and you look under the hood. What do we find? We find that 10% might be due to genetics, but 80 to 90% of the majority of these chronic diseases are due to our lifestyle decisions. And that is just incredibly hope-filled, because it gives us a route back to health. It gives us a route to tap into that innate brilliance to heal and to keep ourselves healthy. And I talk about 5 foundations when I'm looking at how do we create a lifestyle that taps into those abilities to heal. And I talk about sleep, I talk about movement, I talk about rest, which really is managing stress. I talk about nutrition, and I talk about connection to self, connection to others, connection to that sense of purpose, and connection to nature. And when we get those foundations in place, we don't have to have it all perfect. What I have found in 10 years and what I see in the research is that it helps our body move away from disease and move towards health and flourishing and well-being. And so today, when we come to you and talked about food, like, I really want to set it within the context of those foundations. You know, I have people that come on the most amazing diets, and can still be ill, and they're covering all of their bases nutritionally. But often when I look a bit deeper, either they're disconnected from that sense of purpose, or really stressed, or not sleeping well, and so we always need to bear that in mind. Like, you know, for those of us that teach and write about nutrition, we feel like it's all about that, and we can forget about setting, you know, within context. And so, you know, why is nutrition so important, and why is real food so important? You know, just a couple of things around why I think nutrition is important. First, a confession from a GP: we get no nutritional training. It grieves me, and I know there are great people that are advocating to change that. And really, when I started learning about nutrition, it was just an eye-opener, and really exposed my lack of understanding of what's needed for our body to function. And the reason that we need real food in our bodies, one is we need the building blocks for all these amazing processes, you know, keeping us cancer-free, regulating our sugars, making our happy hormones. Like, they need cofactors and vitamins and minerals and phytonutrients and proteins and fats and, you know, and energy in order to function. And that's why, like, food is so important. And that might seem to you, you're probably quite converted to this way of thinking, but my experience for many of my patients over the years, and even sadly my colleagues, well, not sadly, because I would have been with them too 10 years ago, like, not equating what we're putting in our mouths to how it impacts health. So it's the importance of having the building blocks, but also the importance of our gut microbiome. We've got the amazing Lucy Williamson here today. She's got so much knowledge around the gut microbiome. And again, many of you will be aware of that, but these are the trillions of bacteria in our large bowel, and they should be this robust, diverse community. And we now understand that when they're disrupted, it impacts every aspect of our health. And our gut also loves those foundations. It loves to sleep. You know, that community of bacteria, it loves sleep. It loves our bodies not to be stressed, but also it loves to eat, and it loves to eat real food. But certainly when I came into this sphere and started to educate about lifestyle and nutrition, I found like these nutritional wars going on. You know, you've got Professor so-and-so saying high fat, you've got somebody of equal, you know, experience, another professor saying, oh no, it's all about low fat, and it was deeply confusing. And, you know, even as a medic wading through the research, you know, has been hugely challenging. And I really feel for my patients when, you know, as they're trying to wade through and work out what's going on. But personally, and this is one of the core convictions that I share with the Real Food campaign, is that it is very, very clear, regardless of where, you know, your ethics are, you know, and your ideology sits, it's very, very clear from the research that actually the biggest contributor in terms of damage to our health is ultra-processed foods. And here in the UK, up to 67% of our diet is from ultra-processed food, you know, compared to somewhere like Portugal, where it's 30%. I had a colleague come over recently from Norway, and she could not get over how much processed food was in our supermarkets. It's amazing what we have considered as normal. And it's very clear to me that as a nation, like, if the one thing we were to do was to start eating real food, as I said, regardless of your ideology, if we were to start eating real food, we would literally turn the tide of this crisis. And so this is where our passion lies today. What is real food? How do we help people access it? How do we cook it? What about, food security and food justice? And these are some of the things that we're going to consider today. But let me end on another note that I am equally passionate about in terms of food. Yeah, food is about nutrition. Food is about feeding our bodies. But food can be so much more. The other epidemic that we see in our nations is that we are socially isolated, and not just because of COVID. And again, the research is very, very clear. Our social isolation drives inflammation and is also driving chronic disease. There's a research paper that shows actually, social isolation is a bigger risk factor for heart disease than putting our diabetes and our smoking and our blood pressure all together. So you could come into my clinic and I could sort out your smoking, and I could sort out, your blood pressure. I could reverse your diabetes. But if I don't deal with the fact that you're socially isolated, you are still going to be at risk of a heart attack. And this is where food comes in. It's not just nutrition to our bodies. It gathers us as families. It gathers us as communities. It brings us around the table. It ties us to our history. I'm always amazed. I've worked all around the world, and it's amazing how different, our diets and expression of food is within families. And it ties us to that story, and it ties us to that history. But also it ties us to nature, which again is just a massive passion of mine, like this disconnect from nature. But actually our food can bring us back to the land. Dan Barber, who wrote The Third Plate, talked about the fact that, every time we eat, those 3 times a day that we're putting food in our mouth is really kind of an ethical statement of how we value ourselves, how we value our communities, and how we value our land. So I'm really excited about being part of today to learn from each other, hopefully giving you some tools in your own journey of finding health for yourself and for your families. And let's always keep it about that patient too. Let's not polarize and let's get caught up, in arguments. Let's remember this is about a patient who is scared about their health and is looking for solutions, clear solutions on that journey to recovery. Thank you.